Do I say hi there to that camera? I'm just going to go. Hi there, I'm Danielle, work here at Digital 22, and today we're going to be filming the 6th podcast of Trending Upwards. Today I've got Hannah with me, who's the new SEO employee. So she's been doing a lot of work on the outreach, so that's what we're going to discuss today. Is it worth link building, and is it worth it? Mm-hmm. So where do we begin? There's loads. Subject lines, emails, who to contact.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that go into it. I think a lot of people don't realise how much work goes into that sort of thing. You say you're going to send an email to 50 people. It doesn't sound like a lot.
Yeah.
A lot goes into it, finding the right email address, making sure the email address works for your client or for yourself, and then email templates, all of that stuff. A lot of things go into it that you don't actually realise.
And all the personalisation makes a massive difference if you do it well and you use a person's name and you say what you loved about their website, etc.
And that takes a lot of time.
It can get a response. Yeah, you're right. It does for each email. You definitely have to tailor it, and you can't just bulk send and expect.
So should we start with finding contacts, do you think? Yeah, so this is I'm completely really new to outreach. I've done PR emails, that sort of stuff before, even PR phone calls, which has been interesting in the past. But yeah, as far as finding contacts, because we use a program called BuzzStream, which is brilliant. I really enjoy BuzzStream because you could do these research lists, and that's how you put in your keywords, and then it'll bring up articles or pages on the internet that'll be related, and through that you can go through the article and then find the contact through that, which I think is really good. And it also gives you it usually brings up that article that you can reference in your email, which I think is really good.
Saves a lot of time, that.
Yeah, so I really enjoyed your top 10 bedroom trends for August, and then you can go from that and say, I really enjoyed number 5, which I think is great. And then we put it all together on a spreadsheet. You can also add it into BuzzStream and do it through that, which does automatic follow-ups as well, which I think is a great thing.
I have a theory so BuzzStream is brilliant because it organises us, and I have a theory that if you're an organised person, you can do outreach, because it's a lot of logging your email templates, contacting them, looking back, what have I offered them? Have I offered a guest blog? Have I offered they've had a broken link on the website and we've offered them another blog that's relevant that it can be replaced with. And I think if you're not on top of your emails, because it's so hard to do and you don't get hundreds of responses, the ones that you get you don't want to miss.
Oh, definitely.
So as long as you're kind of on it and responding and really organised, you know where you're up to, I think you can't go wrong. I think that's the biggest factor I've found anyway.
Yeah, one thing I really like in that is that you can put all of your emails together as well. You can monitor all your separate, if you've got many clients, you can monitor them all separately on their things, but with BuzzStream especially, you can put it all together and you'd be really on top of it like that.
And it gives us the open rates, how many people have opened it, how many have replied, and then we can decide every time we come to do a client work or link building for Digital 22, do we do the same template? Do we tweak it? What are we offering? Who are we talking to? I think every client's tone of voice is really different, which makes it interesting.
And that's another thing with the organisation, you've got to have your style guide with you as well. So you know exactly what words they want to use, what they don't, what they want to talk about, what they don't, which is really important for that sort of thing as well.
It's really important too. So some clients have PR agencies as well, don't they? So it's making sure we're not duplicating, going after the same sites. And even one thing I've found with doing outreach recently, you can have different clients, but you might be emailing the same site. So you've got to make sure that your email address will be different, but you've got to make sure the structure of your email is different as well, and that maybe you'd be offering different content if you're doing a blog, a guest blog, but people can sense if the subject line's very similar, they'd know that it's not. It is good to start over each time, I think.
Yeah,
or have very separate templates for the clients that have worked. I think that's another good point. Not every niche it won't be easy to get links in any sort of niche. I think we've had really hard ones like cryptocurrency. There's a lot of spam that you wouldn't want to go for, but
or even within cryptocurrency, there are very specific areas that you wouldn't necessarily a lot of websites, news websites do a lot of general stuff, but it might not be applicable to your client.
No, it's very true, and I think some of the easier lifestyle ones sometimes aren't that easy.
Yeah, because
and they want
so
payment,
many.
And it's a different sort of competition. So it's like learning each client and what works for them.
The great thing is that once you know, like, a certain website will take guest blogs and they don't charge you for it, then you can have them as like in your golden contacts list, and they'd be great for any client. Well, as long as they're applicable.
Yeah, as long as it's the right niche.
Yeah.
Great. What's the next point we've got?
I was going to talk about like the cold link building side of it. So that was along with the email templates. When I first started, my original first emails were, here's what our company is, here's what we do, why don't you check out one of our blogs, sort of thing, which can be great for relationship building. But some people respond, like, I'm not interested in this. That you really want to make sure you're offering them something. And that's even with the subject lines. You want to make sure that they know what they're getting. Yeah. So you start with, I loved your article, which can work if you're trying to do, I really liked your article, it was great, that's it. And then you email them again, and that's step one of a relationship building tactic. But I like to do some content to go on, and then the name of the website, because I feel like that gives them, they know what they want. They know it's not like a marketing email. I'm actually helping them out there, and then they're helping me out by publishing it. So
it's good to share our blog as well, so they can see the style of writing and the topics you're covering. You're not just a random, just like, hi, I want to write. That you do it weekly, and it's put live, and you're getting comments and likes on social. So that's really good to do. Yeah. It's quite scary, I think, when you first start outreaching, because you're emailing people and you're like, oh my God, what are they going to say? Like, are they going to kick off because I'm like spamming them? But I think if you offer them something valuable, whether it's a piece of content or a quote, like a help a reporter out request or anything like that, that's beneficial to them, saves them time, and it's good quality. That's how you've got to think of it, not just like, I'm just pestering someone, which it can be that if it's not a great outreach email, I suppose. And
if it's a big site, we'll get hundreds of them a day. So you've got to make sure it stands out and it's not, very general.
Very true. Yeah.
Because they'll get a lot of that stuff. So part of like the cold outreach I've seen on a lot of SEO trends is it is generally dying out. Yeah. Because people are more into relationship building and partnerships, and it just sort of depends on the area, I suppose. Because if you're trying to get as many links as possible, it's difficult to maintain so many relationships with all these sites. Yeah. So I think that's it's not a month-to-month thing. You've got to work at that. You might not get the link straight away, but it's a relationship builder that could help in the future.
I always think it's better to get less links, but that are better.
Yeah.
So that if a relationship building sort of scenario, I'd rather that than just like an easy link that isn't really that valuable. But I think each niche is different, and as long as you're thinking, is it like a natural type of link? Would it, if you saw it in if we were looking at a competitor's backlink profile and we saw it, would it stand out like a sore thumb because it's not relevant? Or is it the right industry, it's helpful, it's answering someone's question, or it's listed somewhere that's helpful, or it's an article that's helpful? I think you can't go wrong as long as you're thinking like, is it worth doing this, or am I wasting if I'm just doing it for the link, it's probably a waste of time. But if it's going to help someone who's Googling or looking for a certain service in a listing, you're going to reach people that maybe wouldn't have found your site.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you think of it from the journalist perspective. If you've sent them something that you think is valuable, but maybe they're not that interested in, they'll remember that you've sent that over, and maybe next time they'll be interested in what you send over. It just depends, I guess. As long as you're targeting the right people. There's no point in doing 50 outreach contacts and it not being relevant.
No.
Because you'll get nothing back.
No. And I'm nervous of when people email and say, oh, can we have a link on your blog? And we'll give you one. Because I'm like, you're not a partner, we don't use you. It's just like an exchange of a link.
It's not natural.
It feels like forced, and I'd rather just stay away from that. Unless it's a genuine relationship, I think that's fine, but I avoid those sort of tactics.
Yeah, they're not the best for an ongoing strategy, I don't think. No. Speaking of like natural links as well, we were looking more into PR side of things, aren't we?
Yeah.
Which would be interesting, especially if you've got, big clients that are doing a lot of different things, or sending press releases. You might not always get a link from that, but then they'll know your name, that sort of thing. I think that's really helpful, and that will create a natural link that works very well.
There's a lot of things that happen in a company with their culture that is link worthy in a way. So it might be staff retention, or they're opening a new office up, but I think local people would want to hear that, and it'd be easy to recruit and etc. So it's not always even about the link, it's like the brand building in the local area, I think, is good. And
that goes into the relationship building of you're building relationships with local journalists, local outlets, and that helps a lot in the future.
You've got your bank of people there, so every time you announce something, you're kind of guaranteed to get a link. So that's a really good position to be in.
And it's great just for the business to show that you're invested in the local community, that sort of stuff as well, which is always great for brand recognition. And
because I always say when I'm going through the backlink profile, some links you can't mirror if they've done work with charity. If you haven't, you can't mirror it, but are you missing out on things that you are doing internally? You're just not thinking of it, because it might be HR who are in charge of it and they're setting stuff up for us, and then are we not turn it into links when we could? It's
absolutely.
Definitely link worthy stuff. So
you're focusing on like other stuff when you should be focusing on the very specific.
It's right under your nose, really. But we're always like creating people to contact.
You
can build your list and you think, let's do this, let's do that, when actually we've got a new site we've got a new company in Canada, or we're opening in London. That could open up for so many links, whether it's listings or PR stuff.
Definitely.
It should bring loads of new clients, so we've got to find where those clients sit in those different areas. So
and what they're reading, and you know, the websites that they visit. And go there. I suppose I could talk a little bit about like the guest blog side of things. That's sort of my background is in journalism, so I have a lot of experience in writing blogs and things like that, and obviously get a certain amount of time. And certain outlets do it differently to get the link in. A lot of them don't do the do follow links, you know, which there are still good links, but they're not exactly what you want sometimes. And some of them come back with outlines that they want you specifically to write against, or they want you to go on a different angle that maybe your client doesn't, or you don't want to write it like that. So I think you have to be aware of especially like editorial guidelines of certain websites and coming up with these ideas, because you don't want to just replicate exactly what's on your website. And you
want it to benefit both sides, so you want that website it's been written on, you want to write for their readers, so it's valuable, but you also got to consider your client and what they're comfortable with. But I think we often share it on social media once it goes live. We try and I suppose thank them in a way. Obviously we don't pay for links, it's against Google guidelines, but we try and share it on our social media, or the clients, depending who's got the link, and
so they are
put it in a
getting
newsletter, send it out, so that we're both pushing it from two different companies in a way to give it the best chance of doing well.
And that is that reciprocal sort of thing. That's not just, can I have a link? You'll have one in mine, you know. And it looks natural again, and that's a great thing for.
And we want to be the authority in that niche, so we want to have all these blogs in the right places so people see it and remember us or the client and think of them for the products that they're selling. So it's a step closer to that. It looks good on the client's social media or our social media. It's valuable content. So it's definitely a win-win. I think it's not always easy to get guest blogs, so we do a bit of everything, don't we? We try and look at what opportunities are there.
Because you're very lucky if you manage to find a brand mention that hasn't been linked, or you know, a lost link. You know, those can be pretty quick, easy, you know, outreach to do. But I feel like a lot of effort goes into the guest blogs and the offering things, like even just tarot requests, like writing like quotes. If you have to go back to the client, it could take a little bit longer, you know, to get approval for that. I mean, they are a lot easier than writing guest blogs, but I mean, and even then, they're few and far between that might be relevant. So it's working from that as well. It's all sort of a chance with that.
There's a few things, isn't there, that you can do as a quick win. Like we always say, have you got a partner list? If we start working with someone, can we contact them, or are you happy to contact them and ask for a link in this position? Because it's a natural relationship, but that's 1 month, so that's one list. And then, like you say, you have some quicker things. You can look at the backlinks and of the competitors, and if you're behind, try and get to speed with that. Any valuable ones anyway. You wouldn't want to mirror the spam, but that doesn't work forever. But guest blogging, I suppose the negative side is the time. It takes a lot of time to come to an agreement with titles and guidelines and word count, and then write it and get it signed off, and then probably a few amends and putting it live. And
even just the research at the beginning of getting to know that, because you've got to be the expert. And if
it's not an easy job.
And if it's not if it's a client that you're not particularly involved in or haven't read a lot of their stuff, you're going to have to do a lot of reading at that point. So yeah, it is time consuming, but it does work.
And it's hard. I always think it's hard to mirror because a lot of people can't be bothered, or they don't want to. Or I even think with the Harrow, like some people are really on it, but there's a lot of people that aren't, and they're just like they need it on the day. You've got to be quick. You've got to stop what you're doing and get it in. And some people won't drop everything, which I can understand, but I think it pays off if you do.
Yeah, I think it does as well.
So yeah, it's just constantly jigging what we do and doing some of the quicker wins when we're doing guest blogs so that we are getting links. But and just I like to just think of it every month, how I'm going to start, how I'm going to do it different. What did I learn last month? Or if I speak to you, if you did it last month, what did you learn? What templates worked? And just trying to tweak it every time to get a better.
It's all experimenting with it, isn't it? Seeing what people respond to.
It's tricky when you get a new client because you don't know what the niche is. You're like, oh, I want to hit this goal, but actually I don't know if it's that sort of area. So it's like the travel, they always want pay. They always want payment, which obviously we don't do. And they all give different issues in a way. Yeah, and that's a good thing to mention, actually. We have the link log, don't we, that we fill out, and we check how much is the client paying, how many links have they got, and then we have like a cost per link, we say £400 to £500, like we're comfortable with, but we wouldn't just keep doing outreach if they weren't getting anything back. Yeah. So we'd switch tactics if it wasn't going well. So we constantly monitor it, and we might change to doing tech or on-site or website stuff if we thought the money was better spent there, because like I said, you can't guarantee it for every industry.
You really can't, no. It can be so niche that maybe there are only a few news websites or websites that would actually be relevant to that. And I have actually been amazed by the amount of, I know the internet's big, but like when you search for like retail, like security or something like that, you don't realise how
it's hard to run out, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's really hard.
Ones that I'd never in a million years would have heard about before. But, you know, you find them and you can pitch them. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But it's amazing how much is actually out there when you do the research.
It's probably quite good to talk about like how we get our ideas of what titles we're going to do, because we've done loads of guest blogs recently, haven't we? We've won quite a lot. So when it's me, I kind of look what the blogs the client has on the website and what they're focusing on that quarter. And I'd look for similar sites to contact that you'd want to kind of mirror their own strategy, but off site, so to speak, on other websites to kind of strengthen it and send the links back to the theme that they're, or the keyword it's probably going to be.
I actually found recently I was looking at case studies that a client had done, and if you look into them and what they did, you might be able to come up with some ideas of an article of like, oh, well, that worked for that client that they had, so let me write about it. And not necessarily reference that case study, but to write around it and say how it works. And you know, I think that's a good example, and you know it works then, even if you don't know the client as well as you think you might or you think you should. You have this case study to back up what you're saying.
Yeah, and I always look at the tags on the blog, because that's a really easy way of seeing the 4 offerings they have. Yeah. And what they've written about it, so what angles they're trying to do. I think that's great. Even looking on the social media or seeing how they describe themselves, you can pick up words, and it sends you off on a completely different path when you're looking at websites, because some of the terminology I might not naturally use, but if I see they've used it, I can do search around that and get a completely different list of websites that's relevant. So it's kind of going off on loads of tangents, I always think. Yeah, and kind of seeing the quality of the sites that come back.
I mean, the quality of sites is another point as well, because you have ones that aren't secure, but they might have an amazing like domain authority or something like that, and you've really got to use the human element to work out which ones are worth it.
It's not just about the DA, is it?
No, that's the one thing. Obviously, we were speaking about this in the team. So one thing I've found recently is they could be the most like the highest domain possible, but maybe it's not relevant. Maybe it's not natural. Maybe they're just not.
I always think so. There's a few high DAs, but they've got loads of ads, and I just think no, it just looks crap. So I'd rather not.
There's ones that look like they were built in like 1999.
That's it.
Yeah, and like you're thinking, who's actually reading this?
Yeah.
And even then, you could get ones like that, and they charge for you to even post anything on it.
Yeah. We obviously do a lot of QCing of our sites and sense checking of things, because you don't want to waste a slot if you can find a better website. Or
exactly, yeah.
Sometimes you might notice they've not been updated for a year, so there's no point in contacting them, or like you said, not secure, or
you've got to make sure they're really worth it.
Yeah.
Because what's the point in contacting them otherwise?
Yeah. I think it's often thought that contacting people, I don't know what you think about it, but when you contact people on the Contact Us page, like a lot of people just think it's not worth it and they never get back to you. I've had a few good ones get back to me, but I know what they mean. I don't think it's as checked as a first name, second name, email address. You're getting a real person.
Because it still goes to an email address. It's just sometimes.
Is it monitored?
Is it monitored? Sometimes you get an email back saying this is no longer monitored. Email this place. So even that's useful.
Yeah.
They'll redirect you to somebody else, which I think could be good.
That's a good thing when people are out of office and it bounces back. I always contact the person, because I always think like they might think I knew the original person. I'm just like, oh hi, I'm trying to get hold of Jacob or whoever.
Yeah.
And then they might come back to me because they're covering him, so they're like, oh, I need to respond to this person. Like, it doesn't always work. Like, but occasionally, if someone's left the business and you're like, oh, I was speaking with him, we were going to write a guest blog. Just sometimes you can build another relationship, even if someone's left the company or whatnot. So I'd go like above and beyond and try and I wouldn't ignore a bounce back. I'd try and like get to someone.
Yeah,
you never know. It's so hard to get a response, isn't it? And get any sort of link. So I'm like clutching onto anything in the inbox.
And it works.
Yeah,
seems to have worked so far. So.
Yeah.
That was the SEO Trending Upwards episode, my very first episode, which I'm very excited.
Well done, it was good.
Happy about.
Flowed naturally.
Oh, that's good. Good for the future as well. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. We've really enjoyed this, and we'll see you next time.